Below is the full cinematic story in English, built from your selected Mafia Boss dark romance concept. YouTube title: The Mafia Boss refused to arrest the prosecutor's daughter. One-line hook: when the daughter of America's most feared anti-mafia prosecutor discovers her father framed innocent people, the mafia boss he hunted for 10 years becomes the only man ruthless enough to keep her alive. Female lead: Emily Rhodes, intelligent, morally conflicted, independent, emotionally strong but shaken by the truth about her father. Mafia Boss secret: Matteo Russo secretly spared Emily's father years ago because Emily once begged him not to kill him during a childhood encounter she barely remembers. Main antagonist: Federal Prosecutor Charles Rhodes, Emily's father. A celebrated public hero secretly working with a rival mafia family to erase enemies, build power, and protect his own legacy. Thumbnail moment: Emily stands in a torn blazer inside a dark federal evidence room, while Matteo Russo points a gun at corrupt agents, shielding her with one arm as red alarm lights flash across their faces. Full story: the first time Emily Rhodes saw Matteo Russo in person, he was standing over a dead man in her apartment. Rain hammered the windows of her Washington D.C. building, turning the city lights into trembling gold lines against the glass. The power had gone out 2 minutes earlier. Her phone was shattered on the kitchen floor. Her wrists were bleeding from where a federal agent had dragged her across broken picture frames. And somewhere in the dark hallway outside, men were shouting her name like they had already decided she was guilty. Emily stood barefoot in the living room, her back pressed against a bookshelf, clutching a flash drive so tightly it cut into her palm. She had grown up hearing Matteo Russo's name whispered like a warning. Her father had called him a criminal, a murderer in a tailored suit. For 10 years, Charles Rhodes had built his career promising America that one day he would drag Matteo Russo into a courtroom and make him kneel before the law. But Matteo Russo did not kneel. He stood in the middle of Emily's apartment wearing a black coat soaked with rain, calm as winter, one hand wrapped around a pistol, his face half-lit by emergency lights flashing red through the windows. At his feet lay one of the men who had broken into her home wearing a federal badge. Emily could not breathe. Matteo looked at the agent on the floor, then at her bleeding wrists, then at the flash drive in her hand. His voice was quiet. "Did he touch you?" Emily stared at him, shaking. "You're not supposed to be here." "No," he said. "Neither are they." Another agent rushed through the doorway with a gun raised. Matteo moved before Emily could scream. One shot cracked through the apartment. The man dropped against the wall, alive but disarmed, groaning as blood spread across his shoulder. Emily flinched. Matteo did not. He stepped toward her. She raised a broken shard of glass like a weapon. "Stay away from me." His eyes lowered to the glass, then to her face. For a second, something almost human passed behind his expression. Not softness. Something worse. Recognition. "You look like your mother," he said. Emily froze. Nobody talked about her mother. Not her father. Not the newspapers. Not the lawyers who smiled at fundraisers and said she must be so proud to be Charles Rhodes's daughter. Outside, more boots thundered up the stairwell. Matteo reached for her. Emily swung the glass. He caught her wrist, not hard enough to hurt her, but firmly enough to stop her. His hand was cold from the rain. "If you stay here," he said, "your father's men will kill you before sunrise." "My father's men?" Her voice cracked. "They're federal agents." Matteo's mouth barely moved. "Not anymore." A gunshot blew apart the window behind her. Emily screamed as glass exploded into the room. Matteo grabbed her, pulled her against his chest, and turned his body between her and the bullets. She felt the impact of violence before she understood it, the sharp jerk of his shoulder, the way his breath stopped for half a second, the scent of rain and gunpowder surrounding her. He had taken the shot for her. The mafia boss, her father had called a monster, had just used his own body as a shield. Matteo tightened his arm around her waist. "Run," he said. And before Emily could decide whether she feared him more than the men coming to kill her, Matteo Russo dragged her out of her burning life and into the dark. The night swallowed them. They moved through the emergency stairwell, while alarms screamed above them. Matteo held Emily's wrist, not like a captor, not exactly like a protector, but like someone who had already decided the world no longer had permission to take her. Behind them, men shouted into radios. Below them, another group stormed through the lobby. Emily could barely keep up. Her bare feet slapped against cold concrete. Her lungs burned. Her mind replayed the last 6 hours in fragments. Her father's locked study. The hidden safe behind the framed newspaper clipping, the sealed envelope marked with her mother's initials, the photographs of prisoners her father had framed, and the medical file belonging to a woman named Lucia Russo, Matteo's mother. Emily had found evidence that her father had built his career on lies. And then the men in badges came. Matteo stopped at the 7th floor and pushed open a maintenance door. Inside. No. He looked back. His eyes were dark, unreadable. Emily. The sound of her name in his mouth made her stomach tighten. How do you know my name? I know everything your father tried to hide. That isn't an answer. It's the only one you get while people are shooting at us. She hated him for being calm. She hated the steadiness of his voice, the quiet authority that made panic feel almost foolish. She hated that, in the middle of the worst night of her life, his presence made the danger seem organized. He pushed her into the maintenance corridor. Pipes hummed overhead. The air smelled like dust, metal, and old water. At the end of the hall, a service elevator waited with its doors forced open. Emily stopped when she saw blood darkening the sleeve of his coat. You were hit, she said. Matteo glanced down as if noticing it for the first time. It missed anything important. You took a bullet. For you. She swallowed. He turned away before she could see too much in his face. The elevator dropped them below the building, into a private parking level Emily did not know existed. 3 black SUVs waited in the shadows. Men in dark suits stood beside them, armed and silent. Every one of them looked at Matteo first, then at Emily, then away, as if they understood she was not to be questioned. One of the men stepped forward. Boss. Matteo opened the back door of the middle SUV. Get in. Emily did not move. Rainwater dripped from her hair onto her torn blouse. Her hands shook. The flash drive burned in her fist. I'm not going anywhere with you. Matteo leaned closer, not touching her. Almost. You think I'm your enemy because your father taught you monsters only come from the dark. His voice dropped. Tonight, they came with badges. Emily's throat tightened. Behind them, tires screamed at the entrance of the garage. Matteo looked past her. His face changed, still calm, but colder now. Lethal. Get in the car, Emily. No. He stepped closer, and for one terrifying second, she thought he would force her. Instead, he bent slightly, meeting her eyes. If you want to hate me alive. The first bullet struck the concrete pillar beside her head. Matteo shoved her into the SUV and climbed in after her. The door slammed. The convoy exploded forward. Washington blurred past them in rain and sirens. Emily sat pressed against the leather seat, soaked, barefoot, shaking, while Matteo Russo bled beside her and gave orders in Italian through a secure phone. She understood none of the words, but she understood the tone. Men would move. Roads would close. Someone would pay. At a red light, she looked at him. His profile was carved in shadow and passing neon. He did not look like the monster from her father's speeches. He looked worse. Controlled. Patient. A man who had survived so much violence that it no longer surprised him. You killed people in my apartment, she whispered. I stopped people from killing you. That doesn't make you innocent. No, he said. It makes you alive. She looked away, hating that she had no answer. The SUV turned off the main road and entered an underground service tunnel beneath the city. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Water streaked down the concrete walls. The convoy slowed near a sealed metal gate, where 2 more armed men waited. Emily's breath hitched. Where are you taking me? Somewhere your father can't reach. My father is not trying to kill me. Matteo finally turned to her. For the first time, his expression changed. Not anger, not pity. Something like regret. Then why did he send men to take the evidence and leave no witness? Emily's hand closed around the flash drive. The city disappeared behind them. The safe house was hidden beneath an old federal courthouse that had been abandoned after a fire 20 years earlier. From the outside, it looked like a condemned building, wrapped in chain-link fencing and forgotten by time. Beneath it, behind steel doors and biometric locks, Matteo Russo had built a world of quiet luxury and danger. Marble floors, dark wood walls, monitors showing street cameras across the city, a medical room, a wine cellar, a library with no windows, men who obeyed without speaking. Emily hated how beautiful it was. She hated that fear and safety could exist in the same place. A doctor stitched Matteo's shoulder, while Emily sat across the room wrapped in a gray blanket. Refusing coffee. Refusing shoes. Refusing to cry. Matteo removed his coat and shirt without ceremony, revealing old scars across his torso. Bullet wounds. Knife marks. A long pale scar over his ribs that looked too deliberate to be an accident. Emily tried not to look. She failed. Matteo noticed. "Does it make me look more like the monster you expected?" he asked. Emily lifted her chin. "I expected worse." The doctor paused. Matteo's mouth almost curved, but not enough to become a smile. "Leave us." The doctor finished the bandage and disappeared. Silence settled. Emily stood. "I need to call my father." "No. You don't get to tell me no. I do while he's hunting you." "He is not hunting me." Matteo rose slowly. The movement made him wince, but only slightly. "You found the Lucia Russo file." Emily stopped. He watched the truth land. "You broke into your father's private safe," he continued. "You found trial records that were never submitted, witness payments, suppressed medical reports, a photograph of my mother in federal custody 12 hours before she was found dead." Emily's stomach twisted. "How do you know that?" "Because I've spent 10 years looking for what you found in one night." She wanted to deny it. She wanted to say her father was flawed, but not corrupt. Ambitious, but not evil. A public servant. A widower. A man who had raised her alone and taught her that truth mattered more than comfort. But she had seen the documents. She had seen her father's signature. Matteo stepped closer. "Where is the drive?" Emily backed away. "Why? So you can use it for revenge?" "Yes." The honesty startled her. His eyes held hers. "And to clear my mother's name." Emily's voice shook. "My father said your mother helped murder a federal witness." "My mother was the witness." The room went still. Matteo looked toward the monitors, jaw tight. For the first time, his calm seemed less like strength and more like a cage. "She was going to testify against the Romano family," he said. "Your father offered protection. Instead, he delivered her to them and buried the truth under my name." Emily felt the floor tilt beneath her. "That can't be true." "It can." "No. You saw the file." Emily pressed her fingers to her mouth, fighting nausea. Memories rose in flashes. Her father at the kitchen table, rehearsing speeches about justice. Her father holding her hand at her mother's funeral. Her father saying, "Never trust men who hide behind family loyalty, Emily. They will make love sound like an excuse for blood." "What do you want from me?" she whispered. Matteo looked at her for a long moment. "The truth." "And after that?" His silence was answer enough. Emily laughed once, broken and bitter. "You want to destroy him. I want him exposed. You want him ruined. I want him to feel one fraction of what he did to my family. That is revenge." "Yes." She stared at him. "And I'm what? Evidence? Leverage?" His eyes darkened. "No," he said quietly. "You are the one thing he did not think I would protect." That was the first moment Emily understood. She was not simply trapped between her father and a criminal. She was standing between two men who had been at war long before she knew there was a battlefield. And somehow, both of them believed she belonged to the truth they wanted to control. By morning, Emily Rhodes was dead to the public. At least, that was what the news implied. A black sedan had been found burning beneath an overpass near the Potomac. Inside were documents bearing Emily's name, her broken phone, and enough blood to make the anchors speak in soft voices. Her father appeared on television outside the federal courthouse, eyes red, tie crooked, voice shaking with the practiced grief of a man America trusted. "My daughter was taken by Matteo Russo," Charles Rhodes said into a crowd of cameras. "I will not rest until the man responsible is brought to justice." Emily watched from Matteo's underground safe house, standing barefoot in front of the wall of screens. Her father looked devastated. He looked real. That was what broke her. Not the raid, not the bullets, not Matteo's cold warnings. The performance. He knew she was alive. He knew she was watching, or at least he hoped she was. And still, he gave the world a grieving father, because grief made him untouchable. Behind her, Matteo said nothing. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. He lied so easily. "Yes." She turned on him. "Don't sound satisfied." "I'm not. You hate him." "I do." "Then don't pretend this isn't exactly what you wanted." Matteo walked toward her. Slow. Controlled. "I wanted him exposed." I did not want you to find out like this. Why do you care? He stopped inches away. The safe house hummed around them. Somewhere beyond the walls, his men moved through shadows. On the screen, her father continued speaking about justice. Matteo looked down at her like he wanted to touch her face but had forbidden himself the right. You're not responsible for his sins, he said. Emily's eyes burned. I defended him my entire life. You were his daughter. I repeated his lies. You believed him. I helped him. That made Matteo still. Emily looked away. I worked in his office before law school. I organized case files. I reviewed witness statements. I sat in courtrooms while he destroyed families. And I thought he was protecting people. Matteo's voice softened by a single degree. Emily. No. She stepped back. Do not make me feel better. You don't get to be kind to me after everything your world has done. His jaw tightened. My world did not raid your apartment. No, yours just kills people without badges. For a moment, the air sharpened. Any other man might have argued. Matteo only nodded once, as if accepting the hit because she had earned it. You're right. The quiet admission disarmed her more than anger would have. A man entered the room. Tall, silver-haired, with a scar across his eyebrow. Boss. We traced the second unit from her apartment. Private contractors. Not federal payroll. Romano money. Matteo's expression turned glacial. Where? Georgetown. Underground club. They're moving tonight. Emily looked between them. Romano? Matteo did not answer fast enough. Who are they? She demanded. A rival family, he said. The family your mother was going to testify against? Yes. And my father works with them? Matteo's silence confirmed it. Emily grabbed the flash drive from her pocket. Then we release this. No. What? We don't know who controls the servers your father will use to bury it. Then give it to the press. He'll call it fabricated. Then what do you suggest? Hiding underground forever while he cries on television? Matteo stepped closer. I suggest we keep you alive long enough to prove it in a way even his friends cannot erase. Emily's laugh was sharp. And I'm supposed to trust you? No. The answer stopped her. Matteo's eyes held hers. You should not trust me. You should watch me. Question me. Hate me if you need to. But when I tell you to move, you move. When I tell you to duck, you duck. When I stand between you and a bullet, you do not argue with my placement. Her breath caught. That sounds like control. It is survival. It sounds like obsession. Something flickered in his face. Not denial. Warning. You have not seen obsession from me. The words should have frightened her. They did. But beneath the fear was something far more dangerous. Curiosity. That night, Emily followed Matteo into the underground mafia club beneath Georgetown because she refused to be left behind. The entrance was hidden under a restaurant that served $40 cocktails and pretended not to hear the screams below. Men in designer suits moved aside when Matteo descended the narrow staircase. Conversations died. Cigarettes froze between fingers. Women in silk dresses watched him like he was a storm wearing human skin. Emily walked beside him in a black coat one of his men had given her. Her wrists were bandaged. Her hair was pulled back. She looked nothing like the prosecutor's polished daughter who once attended charity dinners and smiled beside senators. Matteo's hand hovered near the small of her back, never touching unless the crowd pressed too close. She noticed. She hated that she noticed. At the bottom of the stairs, the club opened into a cavern of red light, black marble, and low music vibrating through the floor. Private booths lined the walls. Men with guns stood in shadows. Everyone looked at Matteo, then at Emily. Whispers moved like smoke. Rhodes' daughter. Is he insane? She's bait. Matteo heard them. His face did not change. But when one man laughed and said something in Italian, Matteo stopped. The music continued. The room did not. Matteo turned his head slightly. Repeat that. The man went pale. Boss, I meant no disrespect. Matteo walked toward him. Emily grabbed his sleeve before she thought better of it. Don't. Every eye in the room dropped to her hand on his arm. Matteo looked at it too. The silence became electric. Emily let go as if burned. Matteo's gaze lifted back to the man. Apologize to her. The man blinked. Matteo's voice stayed calm. Now. The man swallowed and turned to Emily. I apologize. Emily felt the room shift around her. Not acceptance. Something more dangerous. Recognition. Matteo Russo had just protected her publicly, in front of men who measured weakness, like currency. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. No, Matteo said. He shouldn't have spoken. They found the Romano courier in a private back room beneath a painting of saints being martyred. He was young, terrified, and carrying a phone with encrypted messages between Romano soldiers and someone listed only as C.R. Charles Rhodes. Emily stared at the initials until her vision blurred. The courier looked at Matteo. I talk, I die. Matteo leaned back in his chair. You don't talk. You die slower. Emily turned sharply. No. Matteo's eyes shifted to her. She stood between him and the courier, heart pounding. You said you wanted truth, not torture. The men in the room stiffened. Nobody corrected Matteo Russo. Nobody stepped between him and violence. Emily did. Matteo rose slowly. The space between them tightened. You think he would spare you? I don't care what he would do. You should. I care what you do. The words hit him harder than she expected. For a second, she saw the fracture in his control. The way his eyes dropped to her mouth, then lifted quickly, as if even looking too long was a mistake. He turned away. Leave us, he ordered. His men hesitated, then obeyed. The courier stayed, shaking. Matteo took the phone from the table and handed it to Emily. Ask him. She blinked. What? You wanted a better way. Use it. Emily looked at the courier. He was barely older than 20. A soldier in someone else's war. She sat across from him. My father will kill me too, she said quietly. So you and I have that in common. The courier stared at her. He's using you, she continued. The Romanos will let you die the second you become inconvenient. Matteo might scare you, but my father will smile while burying your name from the record. The courier's eyes filled with fear. Emily leaned closer. Give me something real. Not because he threatened you. Because if men like my father keep winning, none of us survive. The courier broke in 5 minutes. His name was Daniel Price. He had delivered payments from Romano accounts to federal intermediaries for 3 years. The next transfer would happen at a charity gala in 2 nights, inside the National Portrait Gallery, during Charles Rhodes's public memorial for his supposedly dead daughter. Emily felt cold spread through her chest. My father is hosting a memorial? Matteo's expression darkened. Daniel nodded. He's using it to meet Romano. Nobody searches grieving fathers. Emily stood too fast. The room tilted. Matteo reached for her, then stopped just before touching her. Emily. She looked at him through tears she refused to let fall. He's going to use my death as cover for a mafia payment. Matteo said nothing, because there was nothing kind enough to say. Back at the safe house, Emily finally broke. Not dramatically. Not loudly. She made it to the library, closed the door, and sank to the floor between shelves of old legal books and mafia histories written by men who had never met anyone like Matteo Russo. The sob came from somewhere deep and humiliating, ripping through the last version of herself that still wanted to believe her father could be saved. She cried for her mother, who had died too early. She cried for the people her father had framed. She cried for Matteo's mother, whose photograph showed tired eyes and bruised wrists beneath federal custody lights. She cried because the safest memories of her childhood had begun to feel contaminated. The door opened. Matteo stood there. Emily wiped her face quickly. Get out. He did not. I said get out. No. She laughed through tears. You really don't understand boundaries, do you? I understand them. Then leave. I won't leave you alone when you look like that. Like what? Like you're trying not to disappear. That silenced her. Matteo entered slowly and sat on the floor across from her, his back against the shelves, one knee bent, expensive black suit out of place among dust and old paper. He did not touch her. He did not tell her not to cry. That made it worse. Emily looked at him. Did you hate me? His eyes narrowed slightly. Before? When you thought about my father, when you saw me on television beside him, when I smiled at his campaign dinners, did you hate me? No. Why? Because you were always looking at him like you were waiting for him to become the father you needed. Emily's breath caught. Matteo looked away, as if he had said too much. You watched me? Yes. For how long? He did not answer. Her pulse changed. How long, Matteo? His jaw tightened. Long enough to know you hate red wine, but drink it at fundraisers because your father says it looks mature. Long enough to know you leave every room when politicians start joking about defendants. Long enough to know you visit your mother's grave on the third Sunday of every month. Emily stared at him. Fear moved through her first. Then something more complicated. You were spying on me. I was protecting you. From what? His eyes returned to hers. From the moment your father became useful to the Romanos, anyone close to him became leverage. That doesn't explain why you cared. Matteo went still. Outside the library, footsteps passed. Somewhere. A phone rang once and stopped. When he spoke, his voice was lower. Because the first time I saw you, you were 12 years old. Standing in a federal parking garage in a blue dress. Crying because your father had blood on his shirt. Emily frowned. A memory stirred at the edge of her mind. Concrete pillars. Fluorescent lights. Her father gripping her shoulder too tightly. A dark-haired teenage boy, standing across the garage with a gun in his hand. She remembered begging someone, "Please don't hurt him." Her heart stopped. That was you? Matteo's face revealed nothing, but his silence was confession. Emily whispered, "You were going to kill him." "Yes." "And I stopped you?" "Yes." "Why?" Matteo looked at her then, really looked at her, with something raw and carefully buried. "Because you were shaking," he said. "Because you stood in front of a man who did not deserve your love and offered yourself anyway. Because I knew what it meant to love a parent who had already destroyed you." Emily's tears fell again, silent this time. Matteo's hand shifted on his knee. He almost reached for her. Almost. Then he closed his fist and looked away. That restraint did more damage than touch would have. The charity memorial became the trap. 2 nights later, Emily entered the National Portrait Gallery through a service entrance wearing a black dress, a dark wig, and a hidden earpiece connected to Matteo's men. She was supposed to stay unseen, record the exchange between her father and Romano's representative, and disappear before anyone realized she was alive. Matteo hated the plan. Emily knew because he had been silent for almost 3 hours. In the back of the armored SUV, rain sliding down the windows, he adjusted the tiny microphone beneath her collar with hands that never trembled. His fingers brushed her skin once, barely. Both of them stopped breathing. "You don't have to do this," he said. "My father is using my funeral to sell evidence. That is not your burden to carry. It became mine when I found the truth." His eyes lifted to hers. "If something goes wrong, you run to me." "Not your men?" "To me." The possessiveness in his voice should have angered her. Instead, it settled somewhere dangerous inside her ribs. "And if I don't?" Matteo leaned closer. The SUV felt suddenly too small. "Then I will tear that building apart until I find you." Emily swallowed. "That sounds like a threat." "It is a promise." The gala glittered with obscene elegance. Black dresses, white flowers, champagne. Portraits of dead presidents watching powerful people lie beneath soft museum lights. At the front of the hall stood a large photograph of Emily, smiling beside her father at a legal foundation dinner. Beneath it, in silver letters, were the words, "Emily Rhodes, beloved daughter, defender of justice." Emily nearly laughed. Then she saw her father. Charles Rhodes stood beside the memorial display, accepting condolences with a grief-stricken face. He looked older, smaller, human. For one devastating second, Emily wanted to run to him and demand he tell her it was all a misunderstanding. Then a man in a gray suit approached him and whispered, "Romano sends respect." Her father nodded. Emily moved closer through the crowd, keeping her head down. The exchange happened near the east corridor, behind a wall of white orchids. A handshake. A flash drive hidden inside a folded condolence card. A sentence spoken softly enough that only her microphone caught it. "The Russo girl dies next if Matteo does not surrender." Emily's blood turned cold. Russo girl. There was another target. Before she could process it, a hand closed around her arm. "Emily?" She turned. Her father was staring at her. The world stopped. Charles Rhodes's face went through shock, grief, fury, then something terrifyingly controlled. "My God," he whispered, "you're alive." Emily's earpiece crackled. Matteo's voice came through, deadly calm. "Walk away from him." Charles tightened his grip. Emily looked into her father's eyes and saw no relief. Only calculation. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. Her voice broke. "You held a memorial for me. I was trying to save you." "No, you were trying to bury me." His expression hardened. "You don't understand what men like Russo do." "I understand what you did." Charles smiled sadly. like she was still a child. That evidence will destroy everything I built. White. It should. His grip became painful. You sound like your mother. Emily froze. My mother knew? Charles's eyes flickered. There it was. The next hidden door opening. Before Emily could demand more, the gray-suited Romano man reached inside his jacket. A gun appeared. The museum lights went out. Screams erupted. Matteo moved through the darkness like violence given direction. Emily heard him before she saw him, the sharp crack of gunfire, the impact of bodies hitting marble, the terrified sound of powerful people realizing their money could not save them. Emergency lights bathed the gallery red. Paintings stared from the walls like witnesses. Charles released Emily and ran. The Romano man grabbed her from behind, gun pressed to her throat. Russo, he shouted, drop it. Matteo appeared at the end of the corridor, black coat moving behind him, gun in hand, face carved from shadow and fury. Blood marked his cheek, but his eyes were only on Emily. For the first time since she had met him, he looked afraid. Not visibly to anyone else, but Emily saw it. The tiny fracture, the breath he did not take, the way his gun lowered 1 inch because the barrel at her throat was too close. The Romano man laughed. There he is, the great Matteo Russo, brought to heel by Rhodes's little girl. Matteo's voice was soft. Let her go. Bay. The room seemed to hold its breath. Emily's eyes locked with Matteo's. Do not, she thought. Do not give them that. But Matteo lowered his gun. Then he slowly went down on one knee. The crowd froze. Emily's heart shattered. The most feared mafia boss in Washington knelt on marble beneath the photograph from her own fake memorial, not for power, not for surrender, but because a man had a gun to her throat. Matteo, she whispered. His eyes did not leave hers. Close your eyes, he said. The Romano man smiled. How touching. Emily closed her eyes. The shot came from above. A sniper round shattered the skylight and struck the Romano man's shoulder. Matteo moved before Emily could fall, catching her against him as glass rained down like ice. He pulled her into his arms, turned his body over hers, and fired twice into the shadows. People screamed. Men ran. Charles Rhodes disappeared into the chaos, but Emily stayed pressed against Matteo's chest, feeling his heartbeat hammer for the first time. Not calm, not controlled. Human. His hand came to the back of her head. Are you hurt? She shook her head. His forehead nearly touched hers. For one suspended second, the world was smoke, alarms, broken glass, and his breath against her face. Then he pulled back, control returning. Walls rising. Get her out, he ordered. But Emily grabbed his wrist. There's another target. They said the Russo girl. His expression changed. Not fear this time. Pure devastation. Matteo had a sister. Her name was Sofia Russo, and she had been hidden for 12 years. Emily learned this in the back of a black SUV speeding through the rain toward a private girls' academy outside Alexandria. Sofia was 16, Matteo's half-sister, the daughter of his mother Lucia, and a man whose name had been buried in sealed records. Only 3 people knew she existed. Matteo, his oldest advisor, and apparently Charles Rhodes. Emily sat across from Matteo, watching the nightmare unfold in his silence. His face had returned to marble, but his hand gripped the seat so tightly his knuckles were white. You never told anyone about her, Emily said. No. To protect her? Yes. And my father knew. Matteo looked out the window. Your mother knew first. Emily's breath caught. What? Matteo's eyes returned to her. The SUV's interior seemed to shrink. Your mother was a federal clerk assigned to sealed witness files, he said. She discovered my mother was pregnant when Rhodes handed her to the Romanos. After Lucia died, your mother moved the baby before anyone could find her. Emily could not speak. My mother saved your sister? Yes. And my father? Covered it up. Emily's chest tightened with a strange, painful mix of grief and relief. Her mother had known. Her mother had acted. Her mother had not been part of the lie. What happened to her? Emily whispered. Matteo's voice was almost too quiet. 3 months later, she died in a car accident. Emily closed her eyes. All her life, she had believed her mother's death was random. Rain. A slick road. A tragic collision. But now every memory had teeth. My father killed her. Matteo did not answer. He did not have to. The academy gates were already open when they arrived. Too open. The guard booth was empty. Rain glittered on the long driveway. Dormitory windows glowed in the distance. Matteo stepped out before the SUV fully stopped. Emily followed. He turned sharply. "Stay in the car." "No. This is not a debate. Your sister may be alive because of my mother. I'm not staying behind." His eyes flashed. "Emily." She stepped closer, rain soaking her hair. "You don't get to protect everyone alone." For 1 second, anger burned between them. Then something under it. Something aching. Matteo looked like he wanted to shake her, or kiss her, or lock her somewhere no one could ever reach. Instead, he handed her a gun. "Safety here. Finger off the trigger unless you mean it." Emily stared at the weapon. "I don't want to shoot anyone." "Good," he said. "Keep it that way." They entered through the chapel. Inside, the academy was silent, except for the storm beating against stained glass. A statue of Mary watched them from the altar, hands open, face serene. Broken candles scattered across the floor. Then came the scream. Matteo ran. They found Sofia in the music room, held by 2 Romano soldiers. She was small, dark-haired, terrified, but trying not to show it. Blood ran from a cut near her eyebrow. Emily saw Matteo's face when he saw her. The mask vanished, only for a second, but it was enough. The Romano captain stood behind Sofia with a knife at her throat. "You should have surrendered at the gallery." Matteo lifted his gun. The captain smiled. "You love too many women now, Russo. It makes you predictable." Emily saw the second gunman before Matteo did. He was behind the piano, aiming at Matteo's exposed side. Emily raised the gun Matteo had given her. Her hands shook. She fired. The shot struck the wall above the gunman's head, close enough to make him duck. Matteo turned and fired once. The gunman dropped. The room exploded into motion. Sofia bit the captain's hand. Matteo crossed the room in 3 strides, ripped the man away from her, and slammed him into the piano so hard the keys screamed. Emily pulled Sofia behind her, holding the girl as gunfire tore through the windows. Matteo fought like a man with no mercy left. Not reckless. Worse. Precisi. When the last Romano soldier fell, silence crashed down. Sofia sobbed into Emily's shoulder. Matteo stood over the captain, gun pressed to his forehead. "Who gave the order?" he asked. The captain laughed through blood. "Rhodes." Emily felt Sofia tremble. Matteo's finger tightened. Emily stepped forward. "Matteo." He did not look at her. "Move Sofia out," he said. "No." The captain smiled. "Listen to your woman." Matteo hit him so fast Emily barely saw it. The man went silent. Emily approached carefully. "If you kill him, my father wins. He turns you into exactly what he said you were." Matteo's breathing was controlled, but something in him was splitting. "He touched my sister. I know. He would have killed her. I know." His eyes finally met hers. There was rage there, and fear, and something more dangerous than both. "Need." Emily lowered her voice. "Look at me." He did. "Do not let my father decide who you are." For a long moment, Matteo did not move. Then he lowered the gun. Not because he forgave, not because he became gentle, because Emily asked. And that terrified both of them. The Romano captain was delivered alive to a journalist Emily trusted from law school, along with enough recorded testimony to detonate half the federal courthouse. But Charles Rhodes moved faster. By dawn, he had announced that Emily Rhodes was alive, brainwashed by Matteo Russo, and wanted for conspiracy, evidence tampering, and aiding organized crime. Her face appeared on every screen in America. News anchors dissected her expression at the memorial. Experts called her traumatized. Political allies called her manipulated. Her father stood before cameras again, not grieving now, but wounded. "My daughter is being controlled by a violent criminal," he said. "I will save her from him, even if she hates me for it." Emily watched from a hidden safe house near the Chesapeake Bay, wrapped in Matteo's coat, while Sofia slept on the couch beside her. This safe house was different from the underground one. Older, warmer. A candlelit mansion overlooking stormy water, with dark windows and a grand staircase that creaked like memory. Matteo said it belonged to his mother once. Emily stood before the television, numb. "He's making me look insane." Matteo turned it off. "He is making himself desperate. My entire life is gone." He stood behind her, close enough that she felt his warmth but not his touch. Not gone. Stripped. She turned. That's supposed to comfort me? No. Then why say it? Because what remains after stripping is usually the truth. Emily stared at him. Do you ever say anything normal? No. Against all reason, she almost smiled. He saw it. The room changed. Just slightly. Rain struck the windows. The house smelled like smoke, salt, and old roses. Matteo's face was still bruised from the gallery. His bandage had darkened beneath his shirt. He looked exhausted, dangerous, and impossibly alone. Emily's smile faded. Does it hurt? She asked. What? Being the person everyone expects to survive everything. His eyes darkened. For a moment, he did not answer. Then quietly, yes. It was the first honest wound he had given her. Not a scar. A truth. Emily stepped closer. Matteo. He turned away before she could touch him. No. She froze. No? If you touch me because you are grieving, I will not be noble enough to forget it. Her breath caught. The confession stood between them, intimate and dangerous. I wasn't going to. Yes, he said softly. You were. Emily hated that he was right. She hated more that she wanted him to be. Before she could respond, Sophia appeared in the doorway, pale and shaken. Matteo? His entire body changed. Still controlled, but gentler around the edges. Sophia looked at Emily, then back at him. Is she staying? Matteo's eyes flickered to Emily. I don't know, he said. Sophia walked to Emily and hugged her without warning. Please do. Emily closed her arms around the girl. Across the room, Matteo watched them, and the look on his face made Emily realize something terrible. Matteo Russo did not fear prison. He did not fear her father. He did not fear war. He feared having something to lose. The final evidence came from Emily's mother. Not in a file. In a painting. 2 days after the academy attack, Sophia found an old watercolor hidden behind a loose panel in Lucia Russo's bedroom. It showed 3 women standing beneath a cherry tree. Lucia Russo, Emily's mother Margaret Rhodes, and a third woman Emily did not recognize. On the back, written in her mother's handwriting, was a line of numbers. Matteo recognized it immediately. A storage vault. The vault was in a private bank beneath a luxury hotel in downtown D.C. One of the places Charles Rhodes would expect them least and guard most. Emily wanted to go. Matteo said no. The argument that followed shook the mansion. You do not get to lock me away every time the truth gets dangerous, Emily snapped. Matteo stood by the window, stormlight behind him. I get to keep you breathing. I am not yours to keep. His eyes flashed. No? The word landed between them like a match. Emily's pulse jumped. Don't. Don't what? Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you've already decided. His jaw tightened. He crossed the room slowly, stopping inches from her. I decided the night your father's men put blood on your wrists. That doesn't give you a right. No. Then stop acting like it does. Matteo leaned down slightly, his voice dangerously soft. I can stop giving orders. I can stop standing too close. I can stop looking at you when I should be watching the exits. But do not ask me to stop wanting you alive. Emily's breath broke. That is not all you want. Silence. The storm outside rolled over the water. Matteo's gaze dropped to her mouth. For one suspended moment, he almost touched her. His fingers lifted, stopping just short of her cheek. The restraint trembled through him like violence caged behind skin. Then his phone rang. He stepped back. Emily exhaled, furious at the interruption, furious at herself for caring. The call lasted 10 seconds. Matteo's expression went dead. What is it? Emily asked. He looked at her. Your father found the mansion. The attack came through the storm. Black SUVs tore across the coastal road. Headlights cut through rain. Men opened fire before the vehicles stopped. Matteo's soldiers returned fire from the balconies. Windows shattered. Sophia screamed from upstairs. Emily ran for her. Matteo caught her in the hallway. Basement tunnel, now. Sophia, I'll get her. No, you'll get yourself killed. He gripped her shoulders. Emily. Gunfire ripped through the front doors. She grabbed his face with both hands. It shocked him still. Come back, she said. His eyes burned into hers. Always. Then he was gone. Emily found Sophia hiding beneath the bed with a rosary clutched in her fist. She pulled the girl out and guided her through the servants' stairs while smoke filled the hallway. Behind them, men shouted. Somewhere below, Matteo's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. They reached the kitchen just as Charles Rhodes stepped inside with 2 armed federal contractors. Emily stopped cold. Her father looked rain-soaked, furious, and heartbreakingly familiar. "Emily," he said, "step away from the girl." Sophia clung to her. Emily raised Matteo's gun. Charles's expression hardened. "You won't shoot me." Emily's hand shook. "Don't make me find out." He looked disappointed, as if she had failed a test. "You think Russo loves you? Men like him collect broken things. He will use your guilt, your anger, your loneliness. He will turn you against your own blood. You did that yourself. I protected you. You killed Mom." For the first time, Charles went still. There was the truth. Not in words. In silence. Emily's grief sharpened into something clean. "You killed her because she saved Lucia Russo's baby." Charles's face tightened. "Your mother made a reckless choice. She made the right one. She threatened everything. She threatened your career." He stepped closer. "You have no idea what I sacrificed to give you a life." Emily laughed, tears in her eyes. "You sacrificed everyone else." Behind Charles, one contractor lifted his gun towards Sophia. Emily fired. The shot struck his leg. He fell with a shout. Charles lunged for her, but Matteo appeared from the smoke like vengeance itself. He seized Charles by the collar and slammed him against the kitchen island. The second contractor raised his weapon. Matteo shot him without looking away from Charles. Emily pulled Sophia behind her. For 10 years, Matteo Russo had imagined this moment. Emily could see it in his face. Every buried scream, every funeral, every lie, every photograph of his mother behind glass. His hand closed around Charles's throat. Charles choked, eyes bulging. "Do it," he rasped. "Prove me right." Matteo's expression was terrifyingly calm. Emily stepped forward. "Matteo." He did not move. Charles smiled through pain. "She'll see what you are." Emily looked at Matteo, and for the first time, she understood the cruelty of her father's trap. Not legal. Emotional. He wanted Matteo to kill him in front of her. He wanted her final memory of this war to be blood on the hands of the man who had protected her. Emily lowered her gun. "Matteo," she whispered, "look at me." His eyes shifted to hers. She walked closer, slowly, through smoke and broken glass. "You told me not to let him decide who I am," she said. "Don't let him decide who you are." Charles struggled beneath his grip. Matteo's hand trembled. Just once. Then he released him. Charles collapsed, coughing. Matteo stepped back like the act had cost him more than killing ever could. Emily looked at her father. "You're going to stand trial." Charles laughed weakly. "No jury will believe you over me." A voice from the doorway said, "They won't have to." The journalist Emily had trusted stood there with a camera crew behind him, escorted by Matteo's advisor. A red recording light blinked. Charles Rhodes stared at it. For the first time in Emily's life, her father had no speech prepared. The fall of Charles Rhodes was not quiet. It tore through Washington like a bomb. Within 48 hours, every major network was playing the footage from the mansion. Charles admitting Emily's mother had threatened everything. Charles bringing armed contractors to a private property. Charles standing beside Romano-linked men already identified through leaked financial records. Then came the vault. Inside were original documents in Margaret Rhodes's handwriting, medical records proving Lucia Russo had been a protected witness, bank transfers from Romano shell companies, and a letter addressed to Emily. Matteo gave it to her without reading it. She sat alone in the mansion's ruined library, morning light spilling over broken windows, and opened the last words her mother had left behind. "My darling Emily, if you are reading this, then the truth has survived longer than I did. I need you to know your father was not always the man he became. Ambition does not arrive wearing a monster's face. Sahudini. Sometimes it sounds like safety. Sometimes it calls itself duty. Sometimes it convinces good people to stay silent until silence becomes violence. I tried to save Lucia Russo because she was a mother. I saved her child because no child should inherit a war. If one day you meet Matteo, do not let anyone tell you what his grief makes him. Look at what he protects when no one is watching. And if the truth costs you the life you knew, build another one. But build it clean." Emily cried until the letter blurred. Matteo found her hours later. He stood in the doorway, giving her space the way he had learned to do, even when every instinct in him wanted control. Emily looked up. "She knew you." "Yes." "Did she trust you?" Matteo's expression softened only in the smallest way. She gave me Sophia. Emily folded the letter carefully. And you protected her. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I did not want your trust to come from your mother's ghost. Her heart ached. What did you want it to come from? Matteo looked at her for a long time. Choice. That word broke something open between them. Emily stood and crossed the room. She stopped in front of him, close enough to see the exhaustion beneath his control. The bruises, the healing cuts, the man beneath the legend. My father said you would use my loneliness. Matteo's jaw tightened. He was not entirely wrong. Emily's brows drew together. I wanted to, he admitted. At first, I wanted to use your anger, your evidence, your name. I told myself protecting you was strategy. And then, his eyes lowered. Then you stood in front of a man I was ready to kill and asked me to be better than my revenge. Emily's throat tightened. Matteo lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to refuse. She did not. His fingers touched her cheek. Barely, like she was something sacred and dangerous at once. I'm not a gentleman, Emily. I know. I will never be harmless. I know. I do not know how to love without making war on anything that threatens it. She leaned into his hand. Then learn. Bayatu. His control fractured. He kissed her like a man who had survived years without mercy and found one place he could finally be undone. It was not soft at first. It was restrained fire breaking through a locked door. His hand slid to the back of her neck, holding her like he was terrified she might vanish. Emily kissed him back with all the grief, anger, fear, and impossible desire she had been denying since the night he pulled her from her apartment. When he broke away, his forehead rested against hers. I should let you go, he whispered. Yes, she said. His eyes closed. Emily touched his face. But not because you think you're saving me. He opened his eyes. I lost my old life, she said. My father, my name, everything I thought made me safe. I don't need another man deciding what I can survive. Matteo was silent. Then he nodded once. Not surrender. Respect. What do you want? He asked. Emily looked past him, through the broken windows, toward the gray coastline where dawn was spreading over the water. I want to testify. 3 weeks later, Emily Rhodes walked into federal court wearing a Navy suit, her mother's letter folded inside her pocket, and Matteo Russo's entire world watching from the shadows. Outside, cameras screamed her name. Inside, senators, agents, prosecutors, journalists, and crime family lawyers filled every bench. Charles Rhodes sat at the defense table, older now, stripped of performance. He did not look at Emily when she entered. Matteo stood at the back of the courtroom, not beside her, not controlling her. Just there, a black suit, a calm face. A storm held behind his eyes. When Emily took the stand, the room seemed to hold its breath. The prosecutor asked her to state her name. Emily looked at her father, then at Matteo, then forward. Emily Margaret Rhodes. Her testimony lasted 6 hours. She spoke about the safe, the files, the raid, the fake memorial, the payment exchange, the academy attack, the mansion, her mother's letter. She did not protect herself from shame. She admitted what she had believed, what she had ignored, what she had helped without understanding. And when Charles's attorney tried to suggest Matteo had manipulated her through fear and romantic obsession, Emily looked directly at the jury. Matteo Russo did not give me the truth, she said. My father hid it. My mother preserved it. I chose to speak it. At the back of the room, Matteo lowered his gaze. The jury believed her. Charles Rhodes was convicted on federal corruption, conspiracy, obstruction, and murder-related charges connected to witness tampering. The Romano family fractured under indictments and internal betrayals. Sophia entered a protected private life under a new identity, though she insisted on texting Emily every morning as if survival required proof. And Matteo Russo, he did not become innocent. The world was not that simple. But Lucia Russo's conviction was vacated. Her name was cleared. The woman history had labeled a criminal witness killer was finally recognized as a protected informant betrayed by the government that promised to save her. Matteo stood at his mother's grave the day the court order came through. Snow fell lightly over the cemetery outside Boston, covering the black coats of his men, the stone angels, the quiet rows of the dead. Emily stood a few feet away, giving him privacy until he reached back without looking. His hand opened. She took it. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Matteo said, I thought clearing her name would feel like peace. Emily looked at the grave. Does it? No. What does it feel like? He tightened his fingers around hers. Like there is finally room to grieve. Emily leaned her head against his shoulder. He allowed it. More than that, he needed it. Months later, the city still told stories about them. Some said Emily Rhodes had been ruined by the Mafia Boss. Some said Matteo Russo had been weakened by the prosecutor's daughter. Some said she had betrayed her father for a criminal. Some said he had burned half his empire to protect a woman who once hated him. They were all wrong. And all a little right. On the first anniversary of the night he saved her from her apartment, Emily returned to Washington, not as Charles Rhodes's daughter, not as a fugitive, not as a symbol for anyone else's war. She returned to open a legal foundation for wrongfully convicted families, funded anonymously through assets seized from the Romano network. The opening event was held in a restored building near the courthouse, all warm lights and tall windows, with rain tapping softly against the glass. Emily stood near the podium, watching families move through the room, mothers, sons, wives, people who had spent years waiting for the truth to matter. Matteo arrived late. Of course he did. The room changed when he entered. Men noticed first, then women, then security. Conversations lowered. Old fear moved instinctively through the crowd. Matteo wore black, as always, calm, untouchable, dangerous in a way no courtroom could erase. But his eyes found Emily. Only Emily. She walked toward him before anyone could decide whether to be afraid. "You came," she said. "I said I would. You also said public charity events make you homicidal." "They do," she smiled. "Try not to terrify the donors." No promises. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. All the things they had survived passed silently between them. The apartment, the tunnels, the gallery, the academy, the mansion, the courtroom, the grave. Matteo reached into his coat and took out a small velvet box. Emily's breath caught. Matteo. His eyes darkened. Not a proposal. She exhaled, half relieved, half something else. He opened it. Inside was a key. Old, brass, familiar. Emily frowned. "What is this?" "Your mother's storage vault had a second property deed. A house near the Chesapeake. She bought it under her maiden name." Emily stared at him. "She intended to take you there," he said, "before she died." Emotion rose too fast for words. Matteo placed the key in her palm and folded her fingers around it. "No guards," he said. "No cameras unless you ask. No locks I control. It is yours." Emily looked up at him, tears bright in her eyes. "You're giving me somewhere to leave you?" His face remained calm, but she knew him well enough now to see the fear beneath it. "Yes." The word cost him. Emily stepped closer. "And if I don't leave?" His voice lowered. "Then I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the choice." The rain blurred the city behind him. Emily touched his chest, right over the scar where he had taken a bullet for her the first night. "You don't get to own me," she whispered. "I know. You don't get to decide my life. I know. You don't get to protect me by trapping me." His hand covered hers, warm and steady. "I know." She looked into the eyes of the man her father had taught her to fear. The man who had dragged her through darkness, shown her the truth, knelt for her under broken glass, spared her father when revenge was finally within reach, and loved her with the terrifying discipline of a man learning not to turn devotion into a cage. Emily smiled through tears. "But you can stand beside me." Matteo's expression changed then. Not soft, never completely, but open in a way that felt more intimate than any confession. "Always," he said. Across the room, cameras flashed. The city watched. The world whispered. Somewhere outside, black SUVs waited in the rain. Engines quiet. Shadows patient. But inside, beneath golden lights, Emily Rhodes took the hand of the Mafia boss who had once been her enemy. And for the first time, Matteo Russo did not pull her into the dark to save her. He stepped with her into the light. The final photograph released from that night showed them standing near the window, rain sliding down the glass behind them. Emily held the brass key in one hand. Matteo stood beside her, his black coat open, his gaze turned not toward the cameras, but toward her. The headline the next morning called it scandal. The city called it dangerous. But Emily knew the truth. Some love stories begin with flowers. Some begin with promises. Theirs began with blood on a hardwood floor, a shattered window, and a monster asking if anyone had touched her. And somehow, against every law her father worshipped and every rule Matteo had survived by, it became something neither of them expected. Not innocence. Not peace. Something harder. Something chosen. Something worth protecting. Outside, rain fell over Washington. Inside, Emily leaned closer, and Matteo lowered his forehead to hers. No gunfire. No sirengs. No running. Only the silence after a war, and the dangerous tenderness of a man who had finally learned that love was not possession. It was restraint. It was trust. It was letting the woman who changed him hold the key.